anything we need to be made aware of to pray for?
I stopped by and saw Billy yesterday, Margaret and I did, and he was doing okay.
Okay, good.
Sitting in his chair, watching TV.
Okay,
Had some good conversation with him.
good. Glad he's doing okay. I know he's fallen a lot,
Yeah.
had some struggles, so glad to hear that. Hopefully he can be out with us again soon. Sean, you got some?
Is there an update on Kate?
Cade?
Okay.
Is Cade?
Cade's better.
Okay. Yeah, he had a fever for most of this last week, so he was really struggling, so glad he's doing better. Okay. All right, let's go to God in word of prayer. Our holy and gracious Father, thank you, God, for all our blessings. Thank you for this time we have together to open up your word and study from it. We ask you, Lord, to be with us as we study, to help us to understand these things as we study them, and to make the right applications for ourselves so that we can make changes in our lives that will bring you glory and avoid the pitfalls that Israel fell into over and over again. We ask you, Lord, to bless all those who were just mentioned, who've been struggling for some time, but also all those we continually mention, those who are dealing with cancer or other kinds of issues. We pray that you'll be with them and bless them in their struggles. Lord, we pray that you'll be with all those in the back. Please be with the teachers and the children. Help them to learn and grow. And please, Lord, always help us to remember how wonderful you are. And remember the blessings we have in Jesus. In his name we pray. Amen. All right, so we are in Ezekiel chapter 8 today. Very interesting chapter. We've studied through the first 7 chapters of Ezekiel. It's all interesting, right? It's all full of these pictures and these instances where God is making it clear that he is judging Israel for their sins, judging Judah, Jerusalem specifically for their sins. And we just kind of like, oh yeah, more judgment, right? But it's very interesting because Ezekiel is a captive over in Babylon. He's hearing about the judgments that are going to happen in Jerusalem. And all those people over in Babylon, what are they thinking about Jerusalem? And what are they thinking about themselves? When can we go back? Why have we been forsaken? Why have we been cast aside and exiled from our homeland? When can we go back? When can we return to Jerusalem? And they're calling for God to do that, I'm sure. But Ezekiel is making it clear you don't want to go back because the end is coming for those who are in Israel. And so you don't want to go back there and be subject to the punishment that they're about to be subject to. Charles?
It seemed to be, in my mind, the people that have been carried away felt like the only way they could get back to God was to get to Jerusalem.
Yes.
And one of the things we learned from Ezekiel is that God is everywhere. He's not confined to one little space.
Right.
Here on earth.
Right. Yeah, and he's really going to show that to us in chapter 8. He's everywhere. He knows everything, but he's also going to kind of show us his presence was especially in Jerusalem. So it's interesting that as we're reading Ezekiel, he sees Ezekiel, he sees the exiles, and he's with them, but also we're going to see that there is a sense in which his presence in Jerusalem signifies that they are his people and that he is their God, which is what his desire is. Yeah.
But in the book, he never goes to Jerusalem. It's always transported in the spirit.
Right.
So he remains in Babylon throughout the whole book.
Right. Yeah, we're going to see in chapter 8 that event that he gets carried off and into Jerusalem, and it seems like it's more so in a vision. I agree.
We're also going to see that God left Jerusalem.
Right. Yeah, that's where we're heading.
Yeah.
Yeah, is the picture of God leaving his home in Jerusalem. Good. Okay, let's start by reading the first 4 verses of Ezekiel 8. Tony, would you mind reading that for us?
Yes. Now it came about in the 6th year, on the 5th day of the 6th month, as I was sitting in my house with the elders of Judah sitting before me, that the hand of the Lord God fell upon me there. Then I looked, and behold, something like the appearance of a man. From his waist and downward there was the appearance of fire. And from his waist upward like the appearance of a globe, like gleaming metal. And he extended the form of a hand and took me by the hair of my head, and the Spirit lifted me up between earth and heaven and brought me in the visions of God to Jerusalem, to the entrance of the north gate of the inner courtyard, where the seat of the idol of jealousy, which provokes to jealousy, was located. And behold, the glory of God of Israel was there, like the appearance which I saw in the plain.
Okay, good. So, where is he whenever he receives the vision?
Else.
Okay. 5th day of the month, I sat in my house, and who's there?
Elders.
The elders are there. Why would the elders be in Ezekiel's house?
Maybe they were having a meeting.
Yeah, yeah, something's going on. They're probably there, I imagine, asking questions. You know, Ezekiel has given this display of Jerusalem being besieged, right, with all the battering rams and the mounds and everything, and then he's done this display of burning hair, shaving his head first, then taking some and burning it, some slicing it with a sword, some binding it to his robe. So he's done all of this to show that Jerusalem is in danger of destruction. He said very clearly, this is going to happen in all the land. Babylonians are going to come in, and they're going to destroy everything. This is the end of Jerusalem. And now we have elders coming to his house. Probably concerned. Probably wondering, is the idolatry really that bad? Because he's made it clear in the last chapter. This is about idolatry. They have continually worshipped these idols, and I'm not okay with these abominable images. I will remove them, and I will destroy these people who are worshiping them. So he has made idolatry very clearly the reason behind all of this destruction that's going to take place. And here they are coming, and they seem to be asking something about that. And God comes in response and picks up Ezekiel. And how does he pick him up?
Apparently some hair grew back.
Yeah. Apparently some hair grew back. So apparently this was later on, right? He fell upon him, and it says it was the form of the appearance of a man, like fire, like gleaming metal. This is all very similar to what we saw back in the earlier images of Ezekiel. The picture of God on his chariot throne was a picture of one who's in the form of a man, but looked like gleaming metal, so obviously not a man. And it says he put out the form of his hand and took me by the lock of my head, and the Spirit lifted me up between earth and heaven and brought me in visions of God to Jerusalem, to the entrance of the gateway of the inner court that faces north. All right, so Ezekiel is being given a vision where he's taking a journey by his hair. Man, Ezekiel is like the most unique of all the prophets in so many ways, but yeah, I mean, imagine that. In a time when airplanes do not exist, okay? We do not fly. Imagine the terror of that experience of flying over the earth and then coming to land down in Jerusalem. The terror and the awe, because this is God's creation, and you're getting this viewpoint and this perspective of Jerusalem and everything that nobody's ever had before. So it's indicating probably that God is the one who's in control of all these things and showing the power of God just in this very vision that Ezekiel's going through. Okay. Other thoughts on the first 4 verses?
Nobody else has probably seen what God sees here and going to show him.
Okay.
You don't really see what's going on here.
Right.
It's really bad.
Yeah, so the first hint is the experience of Ezekiel to go up like that is showing you God has a different perspective of every man on the earth. You know, he has the ability to see things from a different way, a different viewpoint than men have ever seen things. And that's going to play a part in all the things that he's about to reveal to Ezekiel. That's going to be a major theme throughout this section. Okay, now let's read verses 5 through 6. So just verses 5 through 6. Ken, would you mind reading that for us?
Then he said to me, Son of man, lift up your eyes now toward the north. So I lifted up my eyes toward the north, and behold, north of the altar gate in the entrance was this image of jealousy. And he said to me, Son of man, do you see what they are doing? The great abominations that the house of Israel are committing here, to drive me far from my sanctuary. But you will see still greater abominations.
Okay. What's happening here?
Idols,
Okay.
they've taken over. They're
Okay.
everywhere.
So and we're going to see idols kind of as a theme throughout this. What's unique to this part of the vision? What does he see specifically?
Well, he sees the altar.
Okay.
It says the altar of the gate in the entrance.
That's the location.
Okay.
Jealousy, images of jealousy.
Okay. Does yours say images or image?
Image,
Okay.
the image
Yeah.
of jealousy.
The picture is, I think, that there's some kind of a monument, some kind of a statue that is where they would worship a foreign god. Okay? And so you pointed out by the north of the altar gate at the entrance. So you've got the temple complex, and you've got different gates to the temple complex where people can go in and out. Okay? So this idol, this statue where they would worship a foreign god, is set up at the entrance of the north of the altar gate, the north gate. Okay? So the temple complex is not supposed to have anything other than what God has decided should be in there. And they have put an idol in the midst of the area. So they're not hiding it at all. You know, they can't claim that they don't have any idols. They're not even trying to. They're openly showing that they're worshiping this idol. It's called an image of jealousy. What is it? Why is it called the image, idol of jealousy, or image of jealousy? What do you think?
Because when God told them not to have any other images or idols, he said he was a jealous God.
Okay. Yeah, so it's not that the name of the god is jealousy or anything like that, but it's that this is at the heart of God's jealousy. That God is seeing them turn to these foreign idols, and they're bringing it in the midst of the temple complex. What's that like? It's kind of like bringing your mistress home to live with you. Whoa. How's the wife going to feel about that? She ain't going to be happy with that. Okay? So that's why he's saying image of jealousy. That's intended to make us think they're bringing the idols into God's house where God lives. They're not even doing it out away, ashamed of anything. They're doing it boldly in this way. And God is jealous over that. Okay? But it's just one statue. It's just one idol, right? No big deal. That's kind of the concession that they've probably made on some level. Because it's just one. It's not like the whole place is full of them. It's just one. But it's not going to go well. Okay.
Because I think that shows a pattern with Israel. I think Hezekiah had them removed. Manasseh had them put back. Manasseh's son had them removed, and now they're back in there. So even the attempts of those that know this is wrong, Israel continued to bring that back, and that was just going to be a part, you know. Maybe it's called progressivism, I don't know.
Right.
They were trying to appease all the others, you know, and I'm sure those that were part of bringing that back would have a man's logic of why that made sense to do.
Yeah.
And so we have to fear that same thing today.
Yeah, they don't make those decisions believing that they're offending God in doing that, usually. They make those decisions because they think that's practical, they think that's going to help them in some way, and that makes sense, you know. They justify it, and they reason within themselves that this is the right thing for us to do.
And it takes leadership that allows that. This
Yeah.
isn't the masses.
Yeah.
This is those in charge, those that silver tongue, those that have the understanding of the people, those that are being followed.
Well, it takes at least, at the very least, a weak leadership to allow something
Right.
like that.
Yeah, I wasn't using leadership in a positive term.
No.
Those in charge
Sure.
were the ones that were allowing that.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to
Yeah.
kind of note at this point is like, where are the leaders? You know, it's kind of our question, you know, like, why have the leaders allowed this? Why have they brought this in here? And the leaders should have been the ones to stop it, right? And maybe the leaders are men who these elders would greatly respect and look up to and endear, and they may have been mentors, some of them, for these men, so, who Ezekiel's going to be telling the vision to back in Babylon after this whole thing is over. So it's kind of like, oh no, they've allowed that to come in again, you know, and man, they've really become weak. Okay, but we're going to find out that it's not that they're weak; they're actually the problem. Okay, so let's read this. So verses 7 through 13. Tommy, you mind reading that for us?
And he brought me to the entrance of the court, and when I looked, behold, there was a hole in the wall. Then he said to me, Son of man, dig in the wall. So I dug in the wall, and behold, there was an entrance. And he said to me, Go in and see the vile abominations that they are committing here. So I went in and saw, and there engraved on the wall all around was every form of creeping things and loathsome beasts and all the idols of the house of Israel. And before them stood 70 men of the elders of the house of Israel, with Jezaniah, the son of Shaphan, standing among them. Each has his censer in his hand, and the smoke of the cloud of incense went up. Then he said to me, Son of man, have you seen what the elders of the house of Israel are doing in the dark, each in his room of pictures? For they say, the Lord does not see us, the Lord has forsaken the land. He said also to me, you will see still greater abominations that they commit.
Okay. So if you remember at the very end of verse 6, it says, but you will see still greater abominations. Okay. Notice at the end of verse 13, at the end of the next section, you will see still greater abominations that they commit. So the intention as he's revealing this is, it gets worse. It gets worse. It gets worse. Okay. So the image was bad, but now it gets even worse. How does it get worse? What does Ezekiel take in to see this time?
Well, they have went inside this area and they have confettied, so to speak, all the walls around it.
Yeah.
With all these different idols and images and
Yeah.
things that apparently they're worshiping.
Yeah, they've carved out all kinds of creatures and all kinds of symbols and things like that, and they're in there. And what are they doing to with those symbols? Offering incense. There's smoke going everywhere, and they're worshiping these different creatures. Okay, wow. You know, this is wild. They've actually created a secret area in the temple complex where they can go in and they can worship these false gods.
That's from the 70 elders. That's from the 70 elders too.
Yeah.
That's what's so sad.
Good. Yeah, it is. Like, this is pointing us to the fact that it's not the people who are doing all of this, it's the leaders who are doing all this. So it's everywhere. It's rampant. 70 elders. That's a lot of elders, you know, that are completely corrupted by this.
This would make one think that ever since the first captivity that Ezekiel was a part of, that the nation of Israel just lost trust in God. That's why you bring in other idols.
Sure.
Our God didn't protect us from the Babylonians, and they know they're getting stronger. And so we see that they're also their tendency to go to other nations, to the Egyptians and to others, to try to find, to make alliances, to form, to protect themselves. And I guess when they come save him, they're making him less important, which is the reason it's called the idol of jealousy.
Yeah.
And they're bringing up the statue of all the others. I always try to understand why they would do that.
Yeah.
And the only thing I could think of is that they're trying to just protect themselves. And they never really understood while they were being punished the first time with the captivity. And to me, they must have just blamed God and his inability to protect them. And so they're gonna go find other means of doing it.
Yeah, there's a clear picture of the men here just fully engaging in this. Like, there's no holding back anymore. But notice how they're talking about how God talks about them doing this. Verse 12. He said to me, "Son of man, have you seen what the elders of the house of Israel are doing in the dark, each in his room of pictures? For they say, the Lord does not see us. The Lord has forsaken the land." Okay? So going to exactly what Keith just said, their mindset is, the Lord has forsaken the land. The Lord has forsaken us. God doesn't love us. God doesn't care about us. He let us go into captivity. He's caused us to suffer oppression and not set us free. We lost our good king, Josiah. So there's no hope, that we have any hope of being restored through this God. Let's go try out some other gods and see if they can help us. And they also say, the Lord does not see us. Well, that's fascinating. Yeah, they're doing it all in secret, and they're thinking, God doesn't see. God has no idea. Why would they think that? He didn't hear us whenever we prayed to him. He allowed all this injustice to go on in the midst of the city. All this unrighteousness, all this bloodshed. The innocent are dying. Obviously, he doesn't see us. So, yeah, what's the big deal? Okay? It's interesting how quickly they assume that God doesn't see and God doesn't know because he doesn't judge them and destroy them. And yet, how quickly they jump to gods who really don't see and know anything and can't do anything to help them. They just kind of make that jump, and they think they're being secretive and they're hiding everything.
They're communicating in the dark, though. They do
Yeah.
this in the dark.
They are. It's all in the dark.
Yeah.
Yeah,
God don't see that.
that's right. That's right. God can't see us because we can't see each other. We can't see ourselves.
It's interesting, the time frame, you think about many of them are taken into captivity, some are left, and it seems like they go off the rails then.
Yeah.
But they were off the rails already, that's why there was a captivity.
Yeah.
And that's why there was punishment, because they were already not serving God. And maybe some of these ideas and these things are already in place and they've not learned anything, and they're taken into captivity because they're being punished.
Yeah.
Just like we get punished when I was growing up, I got punished for the things I did that were not right.
Yeah.
So,
That's right. Manasseh had spent 50 years basically eroding the obedience that Hezekiah had helped to establish, and Josiah couldn't really get it back. Even Manasseh couldn't help get it back. He had repented even, but it seemed as though they were continually offering up these worship to these idols and things like that, continually setting up idols in the temple, and so yeah, there's just been this continual rebellion for a
So
long
what kind
time.
of time frame do you think it is between the time they've gone into captivity till Ezekiel's doing this prophecy?
Good. So if you notice verse 1, it says, in the 6th year, in the 6th month, on the 5th day of the month. So I think
that's the captivity, 6th year being captivity year?
of Ezekiel being
Right.
taken captive. He was in the second wave.
Right.
Okay, so 606, 596, and 587.
Okay.
Okay, so Ezekiel was in the second wave, 596, 606, yeah, 596. So this would have been around 590. So they're about 3 years away, 3 or 4 years away from the destruction that's about to happen. Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, so they got 6 years of being there.
Yeah.
You know, and here's what's happening over there, and it's getting worse, it's not getting any better.
So they're trying to fix their problem.
Yeah.
It's what we
They're
do.
doing what was right in their own eyes.
They're right. That's right.
Just like they did during the time of Judges.
That's right. Yeah. Good. Good. Yeah. No.
I think there's a great lesson there to think about, you know. I know I've done things in the dark before. And we don't get away with things in the dark. We better realize that God sees and He knows.
Yeah.
The things we do, so let's be careful what
Yeah.
we do.
Yeah.
God sees.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a very fascinating thing to consider as you read through this is God's not fooled, even if everybody else is fooled. You know, I imagine these elders who are over in Babylon would have never imagined these men capable of doing that. But do you think that this is a recent event? Like, they're 6 years in. Do you think none of those elders had ever even, flirted with the notion of being idolatrous? Kind of doubt it. There's probably something in their hearts. They were probably doing things in their own homes. But now they're bringing it closer to the temple. Like they're carving, they've dug a hole in the wall that's on the outer parts of the temple, like in the storerooms. They're coming in and they've set up all of this kind of stuff. So this is pretty extreme. And it's almost as though they feel like there's greater spirituality near the temple. Maybe that's where we'll get those gods to help us. That this location is the place where we'll find success and where the gods will hear us. And so they're doing it secretly. Okay? So yeah, we need to be aware that God always knows. If you know the New Testament, you know God will judge the secrets of men. That's a promise. And it's not the secrets of everybody who's not in Christ. It's the secrets of men. And He will judge them by Christ. Okay? So thankfully Christ will help us and provide forgiveness for us as we've repented of those things. But there's a very clear statement here that you can't go on sinning that grace may abound. You can't go on sinning willfully. There no longer remains a sacrifice. So if we think we can get away with it, no, God sees and knows every single bit of it. So we need to make those corrections. We need to fix. It's not that we're going to live perfect lives. We're going to make mistakes. But the main thing is our attitude toward the mistakes that we make. Are we just trying to cover them up and just sweep them under the rug and say, well, nobody else sees how I treat my husband or treat my wife. Nobody else sees this hidden sin that even my wife or husband doesn't know about, or my mom and dad doesn't know about, or whoever, Don't think that way. God sees, God knows. It's not okay. It will not be overlooked if we continue in it.
Jesus told the scribes and Pharisees, for you are like whitewashed tombs, which outwardly appear beautiful, but within are full of dead men's bones.
Yeah.
Dead people's bones. Oh, yeah. But, that's the idea you get here.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that they put this image of jealousy right in the doorway of the altar. They've gone to the point where now they're not hiding as much.
Yeah.
It's getting worse and worse.
Yeah. So the image of jealousy is like, oh, that's blatant. And then you find out, well, they've probably been doing this for a while. I mean, the fact that they've dug out a hole and they've carved all this means they've probably been doing this for a while. And that's just kind of an outward showing of the deeper problem that's been going on. Good. Okay. So he says, you will still see greater abominations that they commit. So let's read through the next section, verses 14 and 15, kind of brief. Let's see. Martine, would you mind reading that for us?
So he brought me to the door of the north gate of the Lord's house, and to the dismayed women were sitting there weeping for Tammuz. Then he said to me, have you seen this, O son of man? Turn again, you will see greater abomination than these.
Okay. Kind of a short one. But what's going on?
I don't know who Tammuz is.
That's where our study Bibles or our commentaries help us out. Okay. Otherwise, we don't know who Tammuz is. Okay. Anybody look it up? Anybody know who Tammuz is?
Mesopotamian fertility.
Yeah, fertility god. What'd you say the first part?
Mesopotamian fertility god
Mesopotamian.
associated with seasonal death and rebirth.
Okay, yeah. So here are these women who are worshiping Tammuz, the fertility god. And where are they doing it?
Netherworld.
Huh?
It's in the netherworld?
The netherworld. They're doing it at the entrance of the north gate. They're doing it inside the temple complex at the entrance of the north gate. So the north gate's like where it's all happening. Like there's a whole group of people that are like, hey, let's just separate this area and we'll try out these other idols and see if they'll work. And we'll just designate this area to the foreign gods. Sean, did you have something as well?
I was just gonna say, talking about what this Tammuz place is, I have a little footnote that says part of the observation of the annual death and descent to the netherworld of the god Tamuzi or Tammuz. So I don't know what
Yeah, there's like a whole storyline behind the worship of Tammuz that we learned from other cultures. So they've brought Tammuz and the worship of Tammuz into this setting. Okay, so you got the women. So the elders are doing it secretly. Now these women are doing it openly. They're weeping for Tammuz at this northern area. Now they're not in the holy place or the most holy place. They're not even in the inner court yet. They're kind of outside, but still it's the area of worship. Like all of this area is supposed to be for the house of Israel to come and draw near to God for worship. Only the Levites can go into the inner area, which is where apparently the elders have kind of set up, dug into the wall a little bit. But all these things are going on, and it's like right here in the vicinity of the temple. Okay. All right. Still, you'll see greater abominations than these. So let's read the last abominations, and then we'll talk a little bit about that. So verses 16 through 18. Greg, you mind reading that for us?
And he brought me into the inner court of the house of the Lord, and behold, at the entrance of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men, with their backs to the temple of the Lord, and their faces toward the east, worshiping the sun toward the east. Then he said to me, have you seen this, O son of man? Is it too light a thing for the house of Judah to commit the abominations that they commit here, that they should fill the land with violence and provoke me still further to anger? Behold, they put the branch to their nose, therefore I will act in wrath. My eye will not spare, nor will I have pity. And though they cry in my ears with a loud voice, I will not hear them.
Okay. All right, so this is the last one. So this is the greatest of the abominations that he's pointing to. And what's going on?
Well, it's interesting, up to this point, we've seen most all of everything being done in secret, in silence, or in the north gate.
Yeah.
I was running through, it's like the east gate seemed to be the main entrance to, because that's where the temple was there. But they're now right smack dab in front of the tabernacle. They're at the altar, and they're turned their backs on God and worshiping the sun. That's coming up in the east. So they're not hiding anything, they're just straight out.
Yes.
Thumbing their nose to God.
Yes. Good. Good. Yeah, they've climbed up the steps where you enter the main temple complex, where the court is, where all the sacrifices are made to God, and the holy place, the most holy place. And they're turning their backs to God to worship the sun, which is to the east. Okay?
And that's the direction the temple is facing.
Yeah. It's facing east. Yeah.
That's just how far they had come, they had all those carved images to worship, and now they even worshiping the sun,
It's interesting that this is supposed to be building in the greatness of the idolatry, the greatness of the evil that's being done. I would see setting up an image as, wow, that's horrible. I would say that's horrible. Like, look, you're building a monument, and you can probably see it from inside the temple complex. Like, it's probably a big monument that they built to worship this God. I would say that digging a hole in the wall to carve out creatures and stuff, that's probably like, I would say that's the top, like the worst of the worst. But it's interesting that God's criteria is different than mine, that these women who are now worshiping in the north gate and asking for Tammuz to give them fertility is worse than digging holes of the 70 elders and worshiping all those critters and creatures in the dark. Okay? That's interesting. Maybe influence that they would have to cause others to worship these gods. But then the top of the list is these guys going to the entrance and then bowing down toward the sun to worship the sun and putting their backsides to the entrance of the temple. That's the worst of the worst. Okay? So they're doing it very openly, and they're doing it at like the main location where everybody's going to be looking and everybody's going to be coming and bringing their sacrifices into the temple complex to worship. And they're not worshiping God, they're worshiping the sun. Okay? How does God feel about this?
He's angry.
He's very angry. He's very
I
angry.
will act in wrath.
Yeah. He says, I will act in wrath. It says, is it too light a thing for the house of Judah to commit the abominations that they commit here, that they should fill the land with violence and provoke me still further to anger? So he goes even beyond this and says, and on top of all of this, you guys are killing each other. You're killing the innocent. You're taking advantage. You're being extremely evil and murderous people. He says, but they put the branch to their nose.
Could anybody help me with that? To know what that
Okay.
is?
What do y'all think? Put the branch to their nose. What do you think, Sean?
I saw a footnote on my,
Good.
Bible said worshiping the stars.
Okay. Yeah.
No idea.
So, put the branch to their nose. Makes me think of one of two things. Okay. One, it's some kind of a form of idolatrous worship. Okay. Or two, it's asking for punishment. If you're being beaten with a rod and you put your face to it, like, go ahead. It's like, okay. So one of two things. Perhaps it is to do with the idols and idol worship, but it could also just be kind of a defiant act, asking for God to give wrath. So one of those two. So God says, I will act in my wrath, my eye will not spare, nor will I have pity. And though they cry in my ears with a loud voice, I will not hear them. Wow. That's pretty strong language. Okay. Whenever we're reading through Ezekiel, we're going to get the picture that God's willing to forgive if they would just turn, if they would just change, if they would just go back to Him. He doesn't want to kill them. He doesn't want them to suffer. But here we're just kind of seeing that there are some people that are beyond. There are some people that have just totally chosen to rebel in such a way that God is most certainly going to give them exactly what they deserve. That's kind of a scary state to be in. Okay. One more phrase that we didn't really look at before we close class is back in verse 6. I want you to notice this because this is going to be important for the next chapter. In verse 6, Son of man, do you see what they're doing? The great abomination the house of Israel are committing here, to drive me far from my sanctuary. You see, God is saying and kind of hinting at, I'm going to have to leave. I can't stay here. What they're doing is making this place so unholy that I can't stay here any longer. Okay? I think that is one of the more interesting points in this chapter. Think about that for us. How does that relate to us? God telling them, Ezekiel, do you see what they're doing? They're driving me away.
It says far from my sanctuary, far
Yeah,
from my
yeah.
sanctuary.
Yeah. What is it? How does that relate to us? What do y'all think?
With our bodies being God's temple, we continue to sin and sin and sin. There's gonna come a time when he's no longer going to reside within us.
It's like he can only tolerate so much. You're driving me away. I understand mistakes. I understand that you're weak, that you're men, but I can't allow this to continue. Keith?
We can take that up a step to a nation, even the United States. When God's not found here, he would totally turn his back on it, then go up one more nation, one more level to mankind. When there's nothing that pleases him here, there's no point in this place being here.
There's a continual kind of repeated pattern of God destroying the people who are called by his name, who rebel against him. I mean, that's what Israel did over and over again. So, and what's happening here with Israel, I mean, Israel's not just a nation. Israel is God's nation. He redeemed them. He saved them. He blessed them. He gave them everything. And he made his name among them. Like, they are his people. And now they've rebelled against him. And he's like, I can't let you do that. I can't let you continue in that. And he's been patient. He's been, compassionate. He's provided help for them. He's brought them back on the right path over and over again. But they've continually turned back to this stuff to the point where God is now he's done. You've driven me away. Are you happy? Can you imagine having a spouse that has cheated on you and 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 done all these evil things against you, and you've tried to help them and you've tried to point them on the right path and you've stuck with them a lot longer than you should have because you entered a vow of a covenant relationship with them and you said, I will be with you in the good times and the bad times, and you're sticking to that, but at some point they've driven you to the point where you just, if you continue in this, you are sinning now. You are doing evil. You're enabling them, or you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing just by staying married to them. So, you've driven me away. That's the picture here. Like, God can't let himself be an enabler of evil, because then he becomes evil, and he will never be evil. He will never sin. So, he's getting out of there. He's got to. Okay? No.
Yeah, back in the old days, prayed towards Jerusalem. They prayed towards Jerusalem, and they pray now he's not going to be there.
Right.
He's gone completely.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. That's what's so fascinating whenever we get to Daniel. What does Daniel do? He prays toward Jerusalem again. But yeah, the hope that they had was 1 Kings 8. Solomon said, God, whenever your people turn and they pray toward this place, hear their prayer and answer them, even if they're cast off, even if they're far away. Hear their prayer, answer them, and bring them back and help them. And here's this kind of picture of saying, I'm not here anymore. Okay? In Jeremiah, I've mentioned this before, the people thought, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord. They thought they would survive because they had the temple. And if there was a siege, then they could go hiding in the temple and they would be protected because no evil, unclean person could ever enter that temple. God would stop them, surely. No, they were evil and unclean and they entered it. Keith.
It's sad that they turned their back on the only person that could save them. And unfortunately, we do the same thing today. We'll turn our back on God, and he's the only one that can bring us the blessings that we're looking for.
They did it literally. And we can do it literally, but we can do it figuratively, or just in the sense of choosing to do our own life and live our own life and not really look at God or trust in God or rely on God, but rely on things of this world, rely on ourselves, rely on our money, rely on things that could never provide the security that God can provide. Because they promise us security. Right? Those things promise us security, and so we can trust in them. And whenever we do that, we might not realize it, but we're turning our backs on God, who wants to be our security. Okay? All right. Thank y'all for your comments today. We'll go into chapter 9 next week. And Chapter 9 is really short, so I've got the papers out there. We might go into chapter 10, and I haven't created that lesson yet, so I'm sorry.